Hi, it's Annette Buchanan-Phillips again with Water of Life podcast. And I'm going to read more from my book, The Pearl of Great Price, and the section on surviving the new age and the advent of the antichrist, chapter 5. Beware of these cues. There are some cues that I have become aware of in the pursuit of oneness with God in the divine. 1. The disruption of established social groups. Usually, the seeker of spiritual freedom and self mastery experiences rejection, denials, or deprivation and resistance, coupled with argumentation and threats of violence, and sometimes confrontation and, at the worst, death. One may experience separation from primary, secondary, and tertiary groups as punishment for not following leadership directives. Unreasonable demands and accusations without merit or proof. Unquestioning loyalty and illogical requirements and demands, perhaps even illegal or criminal behavior, may be required. Fear-producing messages and protocols. As an example, the Holocaust, slavery, ethnic cleansing, and recruitment and intimidation as a part of a fear campaign. The whole object of terror is to produce a long-lasting effect upon a people or a culture based on fear. It colors all interactions and creates mistrust among the victimized and an acculturation of reactions based on the fear producing experiences and the groups or cultures regarded as responsible. In the cases of hate group lynchings, fear was used to restrict interracial relationships and impose power and controls through fears of death and slavery. The mindset of people being auctioned, bought, traded, and sold has had a debilitating psychological effect for more than 500 years after the fear originated. Like people who survived the depression of severe economic deprivation in the 1930s are careful to keep enough food in their houses, I once saw a Holocaust survivor who still had the tattoo of numbers imprinted on his arm from his childhood experience in Auschwitz, where he watched in horror as people that he loved vanished, never to return. The dread of history repeating itself with all of its atrocity has remained long past Hitler's demise and the end of World War II. There is a look in the eyes that waits to see when to trust someone, if ever. Even as recently as 2001, the replay of bodies falling from a flaming World Trade Center evokes a numb disbelief. I thought it wasn't real until I couldn't deny it. Still, I struggled for normalcy, reporting to work, selling insurance, though few people called that day. We all wanted to talk about anything else but the event and the terror that was echoed everywhere. Day after day, the horror of our inhumanity towards each other plays out before our eyes as kaleidoscope images of American crime and poverty mirrors itself in Darfur, Ethiopia, Rwanda, and Tibet, and many other peoples crying out for human rights and justice in our world. We care, and yet there is a feeling of overwhelming cruelty and disregard for human life. Beware of ideologies in the absolute. There must always be room for reason, negotiation, compromise, and unconditional love and respect on the basis of the right to exist alone. There is no system that is without flaws. There is no harm in rethinking and modifying as the need arises. Inflexibility is a red flag cue to flee to a safe place, a safe space, Threats of harm and acts of violence have no place in religious doctrine and spiritual belief systems. God requires only the sacrifice of love for him and one's fellow beings. Without love, all else we do to honor God is false and incomplete. Love is the whole of the law. Love is as love does, and God is love. Where no love is evident, God is not involved. Ritual and dogma cannot replace love. No cause is worth the act of hatred, violence, or abuse toward oneself or another. No doctrine should stain the soul by persecution required upon another soul. No group should require sexual favors, rapes, and or prostitution and exploitation of its membership. All people have value and deserve to be respected. Any leader that requires the giving up of the free will bestowed by God is not worthy of leadership. They are leading according to their own doctrine and not by God's directions. Beware of leaders who degrade instead of empowering and encouraging. Friends are supportive and not denigrating, inclusive and not isolating, even when they disagree. Love gives the right to disagree and not risk loss of love. That is true acceptance and true friendship based on who you are, not how much you look and act like your friend. Reserve the right to be yourself and appreciate others for being themselves. Death is not required for a good quality of life to begin. The power and ability to have a good and free quality of life and interactions exists now within yourself and has always been. Leaders assist people in achieving the maximum spiritual potential that they were born with. God gave us free choice and free will, power and intelligence with talents, ability, and skill. He has given us the way to immortality in Christ Jesus, example of overcoming death. In his example of overcoming death, our spirit, like his, was always immortal, as God made it from the beginning. There were prophets before Jesus Christ that did not taste death. Among those were Enoch, the son of Cain, Elijah, who ascended in a fiery chariot, and Melchizedek, the king of Salem, who was without beginning of days or end of days. Provision is not ever contingent on belonging, adherence to directives, or as a reward for self-sacrifice or the sacrifice of significant others. God draws people as they come to believe through his love and kindness. This has been Water of Life Podcast. The chapter was from the Pearl of Great Price, an Interfaith Journey.